Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dedicated Show. Today, we're going to have a guest with us. His name is Joe Beaubien, and he is the Solution Sales Engineer at Pyramid Analytics. We're going to talk to you about how to align data strategy and analytics culture to make data-driven transformation a reality. Because for the most part, data-driven transformation is a goal, it's a dream, but today we're going to tell you exactly how to make this a reality. Before I bring Joe up on our virtual stage, I want to let you know that we are doing a fun giveaway today. We're going to give away 2 of the dedicated storytelling courses. So all you have to do to participate, I'll just show you, is type in #data and you can enter to win. We'll give one course away halfway through the session and then another course towards the end of the session. The course is product agnostic. It basically teaches you some data storytelling tips and visual best practices. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Joe up on our stage here. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Kate. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan, watch a lot of the sessions, and it's great to finally be on the other side of the camera. So,
yes, well, I'm very excited to have you here. Really looking forward to the conversation. I know your background and career that you've had so far is perfectly aligned with what we're going to talk about. And I think let's get started with just that. What is your background? Who is Joe? Tell us more.
Who is Joe? All right. So for the last decade or so, I've been working in the BI and analytics space, helping individuals and organizations with challenges everywhere from the 5-person startup to the Fortune 50, right? My goal within the last 10 years or so has really been to drive adoption, help organizations prepare for those cultural and data strategy alignment changes, right? And I think a big part of that, and where I want to spend a lot of time today, is focusing on how we're empowering those non-technical masses with data, right? I think that's an area that a lot of organizations are trying to attempt and trying to make everyone more data literate, but maybe you're falling short, whether it's the strategy, whether it's the operational side, whether it's the culture. So I really enjoyed that aspect of working with all my customers over the years. I helped a lot of organizations launch center of excellences around analytics, so that they can really put a plan together to, again, make people more data literate across the organization. Everyone's making decisions, all right, not just the top 10%. So it's important that we give them a voice and we give them data, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just checking in on the comments. Well, for the most part, people are just currently saying #data and woohoo data. So we've got a lot of folks here already. They're interested. They're looking forward to the conversation. And I think a good place for us to get started is to maybe start talking about some of the obstacles that organizations face. I know you have a lot of experience in this space.
Sure.
And before you get into that, just a quick reminder to the audience that we are taking questions as they come. So if you got something, if Joe says something or if I say something you want clarified, or if you just have questions on the topic, definitely feel free to put that in the comments and we'll address those. So yes, Joe, obstacles.
Yeah, so obstacles come in a wide variety of looks, right, depending on the organization. I think the one I run into most is the if you buy or build it, they will come mentality, right? That's a scenario where, hey, let's make this gigantic investment. We spent all this money, they have to use it, right? And that's not always the case. And a lot of times that's not the case. The decisions are made to empower the individuals in your organization that are already empowered with tools, right? But they really fall short in addressing the needs of the larger masses. And that's really where you're going to see your adoption. That's where you're going to see your return on investment. And so I see that as a pretty big obstacle that organizations struggle with a lot, right? Yeah. When they have 5 different tools, no one trusts that data either. So that really hurts your organizational culture and their reliance on that trusted data. Mm-hmm. I also see a lot of organizations that say, hey, tools are so easy to buy nowadays, right? You can put them on credit cards. They're so easy to buy. So let's just do our own thing, right? And to some extent, there's some value depending on the use case in that. But I really think that the departmentalized deployment really causes a lot more harm than good. Again, just in my experience. So those are just a couple things that I see pretty commonly that we try to help organizations work with.
Yeah, that whole build it and they'll come. I've absolutely seen this firsthand where you spend so much of your time building this dashboard that you think is going to meet everyone's needs, and then you look at the adoption, you look at the actual, number of people who have maybe clicked on it once and then never came back, or you have that one person who's always checking it, and it's probably you, because you built it. You want to make sure it still works. So how do we overcome that obstacle specifically, where we don't just build something for the sake of building it just because we can and we have those tools?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I actually had an organization I worked with a while back, where that exact thing came in. He said, our numbers are up. I'm checking them every single day. And it's like, okay, go in there, run a report, and take your name out of it and see what happens. Right? And it was like, oh my gosh, like no one is looking at this thing. And so, I think there's a lot of things, and we'll talk about this later, hopefully, and that is, when you put out something like a dashboard, you put out analytics for end users, you want to have to keep the person who's using it in mind. And I think there's far too often we just throw a dashboard together and give it to them.
Yeah.
As an analyst, you're never going to answer every single question someone has with a dashboard, right? You can give them a dashboard that has a ton of flexibility, and that's going to be very useful. But it really comes down to that constant back and forth and constant change and evolution of analytics that you need to be prepared for. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Matt says, when you build for everyone, you build for no one. So
that's absolutely right.
That's
absolutely
definitely
right.
true. Definitely true. We do have a question here from the audience. It's a LinkedIn user, which means their LinkedIn privacy settings are very, very strong. But the question is, how do you best align process to develop for a series of large data sets with design thinking at the forefront?
Yeah. So this is a great question. I think, so this is a good question. So we have large data sets, and this is, even small organizations are dealing with extremely large data sets nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how are we dealing with that? One, I think choosing the right technology, the right mature technology that can handle large data sets and still give you the flexibility to slice and dice and do what you need to. I think really doing a due diligence for that is paramount, right? Because, any strategy, any people you put in place, if the technology is not going to be responsive, there's nothing you can do about it. So as far as putting a plan together, I think there's a number of things you can do, right? Obviously, a well-designed process to find that potential solution. I think when you're dealing with those large data sets, having constant communication with the end users, business or IT, who are going to give you a better understanding of exactly what they're looking for. Right, I have this huge data set, but I don't need to give that whole data set to these individuals, right? Find that use case, spend the time, spend the 2, 3, 5 meetings, whatever it takes to hone in on exactly what they need out of that large data set so that you're delivering exactly what's needed. To its infusion. I think that's, again, something that people hear, okay, I got to have meetings about meetings to design this one dashboard, but the end result is going to be so much better if you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were talking about challenges earlier. So a lot of times we talk about challenges that come up because of maybe lack of proper technology. I'm thinking that's no longer the case, right? Even Gartner, in their recent report, they said all these tools we're comparing at this point, they're pretty much the same in their ability to visualize data and kind of their user flexibility. So my question is, what do you think are the bigger challenges? Are they the operational challenges? Are these cultural challenges in terms of getting adaptability for these analytics and dashboards?
Yeah, I would agree with Gartner to an extent. I still think there's some differentiation in the market.
Go pyramid, yes.
But I 100% agree. If you need to create a bar chart, there's 200 vendors that'll create a bar chart for you, right? And have that interaction nowadays. I think for me, it isn't necessarily the operational side of things. It's not the technology all the time. What it really is that cultural side of things, right? It's going to be the culture experience. It is definitely more difficult to overcome. You have two kind of different types of people within organizations. You have the, I'm getting everything I need today. Why do you want to make changes?
Yeah.
I don't need you to make changes. I don't want to have anything different from a new analytics adoption. I'm great. You have other people that say, hey, listen, I want access to this new shiny tool. I am completely underserved. And what you're saying sounds great, but hey, I don't want to have to learn anything. And typically, I don't want to have to learn a tool. I don't want to have to learn an interface. I just want you to be able to provide me with some flexible information and data. And so you're really fighting with those kind of two, not really fighting, but you're trying to appease both of those groups. And at some point, you just have to make a decision. Tools can be bought, but if the education is not there, if the internal marketing, which I think is extremely important when you're doing, a new data strategy, right, and aligning it to culture, the support, the executive buy-in, if those things are not in place, the employees are not going to adopt, or they're going to be a lot less likely to adopt this new change and this new strategy to make new data decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned internal marketing. I agree. That's so important. And I'll share my experience of how I went about this, but I'd love to hear maybe one of your use cases of when you've seen internal marketing done right.
Yeah. You want to go first, or you want me to?
No, you go first. You go first.
Okay. Right. So I've seen a number of organizations. We have one here locally that was a customer for a long time, still is, and they are a reseller. They are a technical company. They're a reseller of all things hardware for offices, phones, landlines, everything you need to kind of start up an office and building. And what they have done from an internal marketing perspective is, when they bring on a new tool or they bring on a new process that's going to provide better analytics, provide better data to the end users, they go on a full out blitz. They have, marketing content that's, targeted at their own internal users. They, are setting up challenges. Hey, here's the new data. If you come in and you participate and you win, you get 2 extra days of PTO. That was one of the awards and prizes, right? So they are doing everything they possibly can from a internal marketing perspective to engage the users, right? To force them into trying this out, give it a look, see how it can address your issues. There's mentoring sessions. There's, just general coffee hour working sessions. Where you can come in. And they just did a fantastic job of making sure. And when you walk in the building, it was beautiful to see kind of your logo all over the place because they were marketing and saying, hey, come check this out from 4 to 6. We're doing this down here and we're having food. But they just did a great job of saying, hey, let's get people aware of this. Because the opposite side of that is, hey, it launched today. Here's an email. Here's a link. And that's just...
Oh yeah, that's going nowhere.
Fail miserably, right?
Yes. That email is just going to sit there unread. Absolutely. I love the example of the competition. I think, I'm a competitive person, so I would be all over that data challenge. But yeah, I think my story for internal marketing was actually to just put together a really, really good dashboard, a really effective one. It just so happened to be, it was at the executive level. So then any department that saw that, they were kind of like, how do we do this? I want to do that. I want ours to look like yours. And it just kind of kept going from there. I think you have to start off really strong and showcase things. But we have a question here from someone in the audience that goes right along with what we're talking about. And Bill's asking here, what's the best way to get those that are intimidated by using dashboards to use data in their job? So let's say we're doing this competition and then there I am, and I'm intimidated with dashboards, and I want to participate, but I'm too scared. What do we do now?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Thanks, Bill, for throwing that out there. I think one of the best ways to get people who are intimidated about data is to make it fun, right? Maybe give them a data set that's not intimidating. Maybe provide a little bit of mentoring, provide some fun videos about how to work within the environment. Give them a buddy, right? So I've also done that approach where you have a buddy that will come in and work with you and work on data that will get you a little bit more comfortable inside of those technical environments. So I think there's a lot of different ways, but make it fun.
Yeah.
Right? No one wants to come to work and just go into a tool and start pounding away. Make it fun. If you want people to learn, you want people who are intimidated, bring some passionate people to the table, and people follow passion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I also had to overcome this intimidation factor at some point where those specific departments who were really excited about, ooh, I want my stuff to look like yours. When I told them, well, here's a tool, just use it. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to use this tool. You build it for me. You tell me what to do after. But I think what really helped was I said, open up the tool. Let's share screen, right? And let you click around while I watch. And I think that was super effective because they realized that these tools are not that difficult to use. For the most part, it is, double click or drag and drop, and you kind of get to build what you like. And I think just letting them do this hands-on for about 10 minutes was more than enough for them to kind of get started, because it can be scary the first time you try something.
Yeah, and it's important to have that easy to use tool as well, right? So the biggest way to get over that is to have an investment in a tool that is ranked easiest to use, basically, right? Ease of use, and so that's going to be pretty critical.
Yeah.
You also need to make things very flexible, make things very friendly, make things that are easily accessible to the end user, to just make that experience easy. I know, NLQ has kind of gotten it was high for a while, it's low for a while, it's back a little bit more, but to have an end user that can simply ask a question,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what breaks a barrier faster than saying, what question do you have, right? Ask the question, whatever it is, and have the tool provide the answer. And I think that can be pretty easy too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question here. So the question is, what is the best and fastest way to build in-house analytics competencies if you cannot hire someone from the outside of an organization to implement such know-how? Would you recommend investment in online courses for the team to be effective?
So I think there's a couple things, and I think this goes back to a common topic here on Dedicated, and that is, how do you make people more data literate, right?
Yeah.
Preparing companies to accept data can be pretty tough. I think this goes back a little bit to how you roll out the technology and how you engage and get people excited about the technology, right? So if you don't have the capability to bring in individuals, you want to do a very good job of having comprehensive training capabilities, right? Lean on that vendor, lean on that partner for a lot of these things as well. There's no one out there who is rooting for you to do more with their technology than that person, right?
Right.
So, take advantage of that. There's lots of sessions, lots of free training out there that you can leverage.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because once you build that relationship with your vendor, just let them know you want to be their best use case story, and let them go wild with helping you, right? Because that's going to be your number one motivator right there, is to have your client succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, every vendor should do that. Every partner should do that, right? Don't be afraid to ask either, right? That's a lot of what I do, right? Is working with organizations on creating centers of excellence, helping organizations just get started, help create their first, rollout of the technology, get people excited. That's what we do. So ask.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I remember earlier in my career, I was stuck with some stuff with another vendor, and I didn't even know that was an option, that I can go to them for support. I was always looking internally within my organization, and then they pointed me to the point of contact for that vendor, and I was like, oh wow, this opens up so many doors, because now I have the solutions at my fingertips, and these people were apparently being paid to help, and I didn't even know about it. So I think getting that message out there from a vendor perspective as well is really, really useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a difficult question for you here from Neil. There's some debate around this. Are dashboards dead or not? I see some people, screaming death to dashboards off the rooftop. Some people saying dashboards live forever. You don't have to take a stand, but let's hear your thoughts on dashboards.
I'll take we'll see. I'll take maybe a little controversial stance here.
All right.
So here's my stance on dashboards. Dashboards are one of many, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, at least 7 or 8 different mechanisms for communicating information to end users. And I think dashboards in particular, they can have a lot of flexibility if designed correctly, but they can also be no more helpful than than a PDF document, right? That's static. That's just showing you what the information is. So I think from a dashboard perspective, if it's designed well, it can create value. If there's drill down, if there's interaction, if there's an ability to answer the question why inside of it, rather than, hey, here's your distribution, here's your trend, things like that, then I think there can be value in dashboards. But again, I think it's only one mechanism. I love the idea that people are going outside of dashboards to deliver information to end users. Because again, what that's going to set up is it's going to set up more people within your organization being able to access and make decisions off of data. Because whether it's a licensing issue, not everyone has access to a dashboard, whether it is, hey, I have no idea what this chart is telling me, I'm not coming back here, or whatever it might be, being able to burst out or to send out content, maybe in the form of infographics, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. It's a newer growing trend that can provide immediate impact, immediate information to individuals that are not technical. I think is a growing and maybe a better way to reach the masses than dashboards.
Okay, all right. That's sort of taking a stand. I always think about cars, right? We still have those dashboards, and I don't see those going away either. It's just, for me, a dashboard is a piece of information that lets you know how things are going for the most part, right? It's a quick glance where, upon that glance, you know where to find what piece of information, and then you'll know if something's wrong with some sort of red alert or whatever. But yeah, that's great.
But think about that exact example, right? Take a dashboard from a Studebaker, and then take a dashboard from I don't even know. What's a nice fancy car nowadays? Like a Mercedes or something like that, right? Okay. They're showing the same information, but the newer, more well-designed dashboards are providing you more information. They're telling you your tire pressure is low. They're telling you you're running out of gas. Here is somewhere to go to get more gas, right? Yeah. And so I think the evolution of dashboards from, hey, here's a alert, here's a red arrows going up, mm-hmm. or this chart showing we're getting more sales here. Those can be valuable, but I think the evolution is going to be more into the kind of recommendation side. Here's what you're seeing, but I want to be able to understand what's my next best to answer a question. So. Yeah,
you're right. I think soon enough, the car is going to say, okay, you're running out of gas. I will literally just take you to the nearest gas station. Don't do anything.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
I will get my own gas. Don't even come out of the car. So I think that's where we're moving with dashboards as well. Like, your numbers are low. Let me send out a sales email, on your behalf. So.
Exactly. I mean, that's not future, right? That's today. That should be happening in your organization right now. And so, again, are they dead? I don't think they're dead. Could they be improved? Could they be made more effective for the end user? Absolutely.
Yes. So. Yeah. So before we take the next question there from Joseph, just a reminder, we're going to announce our first winner. So #data, we're giving away the dedicated storytelling course. So #data in the comments. And after the next question, we'll announce our first winner. All right, next question from Joseph. So his organization still believes in working with spreadsheets on Excel, which is not uncommon these days. So what's the best way to adopt better data practices? Could you suggest a gradual progress over time to move into the data centipede culture?
The data centipede culture, that is a new one for me.
All
right. Yes, so Excel is never going away. What I like to look at from Excel is that from an evolution perspective, I want to start using Excel as a data source, not as an analytics tool, right? So really take that. I do 80% of my work in Excel. I want to flip that and say I want to use Excel for 20%, which is the data aspect of it, and then I want to do all of my interactions. I want to do all my analysis in an actual tool. But you don't just flip that overnight, right? So how do you get to that point? Well, I think again, if you have a tool in place that will allow you to start doing some things you can't do in Excel, I think that's a good place to start. I think you need to start highlighting the capabilities beyond Excel that tools bring to you. Start implementing storytelling. Start implementing. Start implementing again, some of that internal marketing where it kind of gets people excited about using something other than just Excel. It's a tough one. That's a tough question. It's a tough one to beat because, again, it comes down to culture. If your culture is Excel driven, it's really hard to change sometimes, but it's not impossible. People do it all the time. I'm working with a number of customers right now that are saying, come help us. We rely too much on Excel. This person just left. They knew all the Excel stuff. We are dead in the water unless we find another option, right? And I think too often than not, that's the case that companies find themselves in too late when they are so heavily dependent on Excel, right? And so,
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen that. Even last week and earlier this week, we delivered training for a pretty large bank, and the training was on Excel. I mean, we have all these tools available, and we're teaching people data visualization skills using Excel, which, I mean, Excel has some functionality for, fancier charts and maybe dashboards in some cases. But I think one way I was able to convince some people to move away from Excel, which I'm not at all trying to say, everyone should get off of Excel. Excel definitely has its purpose, but there are some things that are easier to do. So, for example, if you were to build a dashboard and you wanted to refresh it, let's say every morning, and most tools have a refresh button, whereas in Excel, you might have to do a little bit of a workaround to get that data into pulling in the latest and greatest, especially if you're working with multiple data sources. That's when the tools, I think, really come in handy. And I mean, for me, they're just easier to use. I started with a BI tool and then kind of went to Excel to learn it a little bit in order to do these trainings for other people. But yeah, I feel like once people use the tools, they tend to agree that, wow, this is a little bit easier. It's just, I guess, a habit as well. You have to move away from that habit of going to your comfort state.
Sure. Yeah, one of the other things that comes out quite often when I hear about heavy reliance on Excel is that the governance side of it, right? And I mean that from two different perspectives, right? Governance from is everyone reporting off the same data? It's Excel. You can change things, right? And you don't maybe mean to do it on purpose, but you're also taking all of that potentially proprietary data from your organization, you're bringing it onto your laptop. And, God forbid, you get hacked or something happens, that data could then be out there. So there's a governance risk, avoidance by moving to maybe a centralized web-based tool, something like that, possibly.
Yeah.
The other side of it, though, is the other side of the governance is that, how are you controlling what people are able to see? Someone can share that document with someone else pretty easily. There's a lot of different things and a lot of risks that Excel exposes, right? With the number of organizations that going to a web-based tool or a platform might stop. So just things to consider, things to think with a heavy Excel reliance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The sharing of the data, that could be someone's nightmare for sure. You just say, hey, take a quick look at my table. And then that could be shared, and then email hacking and all that. Yes, data security and privacy is a huge deal. All right, you ready for the first winner, Joe?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're going to announce our first winner. So the first winner of the dedicated storytelling course is, let's see, and I'm just going to write this down. That makes it easier later on when I have to search for winners. And congratulations to Bill Fry. I love how it pauses and makes you think you're the winner and then it switches. Bill, congratulations. I'll follow up with you after the show to make sure you get the dedicated storytelling course, and we'll announce one more winner towards the end. So hashtag data if you want to enter. But yes, we had a comment come in from Matt that I want to address here. And he says that, dashboarding tools are easy to sell because they make data beautiful, which they do. And he says that the issue is the pain point they address is not the pain point they solve. So as the pain point is usually rooted deeper in the system and lack of structure. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do agree with that. And I think this kind of goes back to those those simplistic dashboards, to the ones that we think they're addressing a problem, but all they're maybe really exposing is a deeper issue within our data. Right, you're putting all this beautiful data out there, but is it right? Right? Have we gone through the process to make sure that what we're visualizing, what we're showing is factual and something that needs to be represented to all these individuals. And so, yeah, quite often it's going to expose something that's definitely something that's more problematic, right, at the data level, or at the just maybe the architecture level of, how scalable is this? What are we doing with it? So I do completely agree with it. It's good. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, yes, so these tools do make data beautiful, but I think it also helps you take a step back and think through your structure, right? If you're going to start putting all your data, let's say you go with one tool or one vendor that is going to manage all of your data and visualize all of your data, I think it forces you into thinking through all your data sources and kind of making sure that it's all centralized. And once you visualize that data, it also can make your understanding unbeautiful. What I mean by that is you have this understanding of what you think your data looks like, and then these BI tools will come in and kind of visualize it all for you, and you're going to say, well, this looks wrong. Why is that like this? And that visualization helps you pinpoint some of the underlying issues where you can go back and say, okay, this whole thing is wrong. We have to go back and fix it in the underlying sources. So I think it can actually help.
Yeah.
And Matt has a follow-up comment. This is a car thing you might know. You can't put Ferrari body on the Geo Metro chassis and end up with a Ferrari. So,
I couldn't agree with you more, Matt. Yeah, absolutely.
What's a Geo Metro chassis? I'm not even sure I'm saying that right.
Chassis. Yeah, Geo Metro chassis. So Geo Metro, it's a smaller car.
Okay.
It's not something that's super, exciting or really want. But yeah. So yeah, putting a Ferrari, putting a pretty scan, putting a beautiful dashboard on top of an absolutely awful body is just masking the problem. It's only it's pushing the problem more downstream, which is a lot more issues when you have a lot more people seeing it. So. Yeah.
Well, and you highlight those issues, and I think that's actually a good thing, because then it forces you to take that embarrassed look off your face and go fix your underlying issues, right? Because now everyone's seen the Geo Metro chassis underneath the Ferrari, and now it's time for you to fix it, and can only mean good things going forward. So, all right, I think I want to shift focus and talk about immediate needs of an organization versus long-term strategic goals, right? So when we get, let's say, a BI tool, or we have this analytics process we want to undertake, how do we make sure that as we're meeting these immediate needs, that we also think about these long-term goals?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think for me, again, I come more from the technical background. Picking the right platform is critical here, right? I think 10 years ago, everyone wanted to provide self-service for analysts. They wanted to deliver insights to the management, C-suite, things like that. And so, we were hitting on those short-term goals, right? We just wanted to do that. According to a number of reports, including Dresner, who came out here recently, that tools approach really still left 80 to 83% of organizations in the dark.
Wow.
And so, we were getting more insights out, but it wasn't really getting to the right people, because they were short term, right? They were immediate needs. We want to just visualize this data, get this dashboard ready, give it to the whoever, and let them make decisions, right? But again, a majority of the employees at that point were still making gut decisions. Tools then had to fill in the gaps and purchase other things to fill in their needs, and right, we're still seeing all of this happening today. That's why finding the right platform that is holistic in its approach on how it delivers information to all users, both in the short term and in the strategic long term, is critical here, right? So that solution needs to address the people who need to access the data, get the analytics, right? The traditional self-service data and analysts for downstream consumption. But that exact same platform really needs to solve and be able to address the larger organizations and users' needs. And that's where the larger use cases come. How is it addressing my non-technical population? And again, I'm a firm believer that population is still dramatically underserved in a majority of organizations. And that should be part of your long-term strategy objective, is getting data into the hands of non-technical. end users. And that could be in the form, like I mentioned earlier, of like a natural language querying. So people can just simply ask their questions. Maybe it's some augmented narrative analytics where we're surfacing up insights for non-technical people. I see that as, it was good demoware a number of years ago, but I'm really finding that, especially when I'm dealing with non-technical end users, they look at a chart and say, there's too many colors on this. I have no idea what this is supposed to tell me. But if you can provide them with a narrative and say, hey, here's what's important. Here's how it ranks out of these 4 elements. And sales is 20% of total for this particular product, whatever it might be, right? So it's how we're delivering information out to end users that's really going to help us achieve our long-term strategic objectives. And again, in my perspective, that should be addressing data usage for the entire organization. There were 4 other things. So I read a Forbes article recently. There are 4 things that it pointed out. And Carly, if you're on, maybe you can post that article for everyone. It's really about aligning the short-term and the long-term strategies. And a couple of things that it says you really need to be able to align both, right? You need that outspoken proponent at the leadership level who's going to, be the one who stands up and says, data and analytics, this is the way we're going with it, right? These are the needs we're going to solve today, and here is our goals. Here is what we plan on doing for everyone moving into the future. So you need that leadership. I'm a firm believer in centers of excellence as well. People need a place to turn. People need a governing body over the data that says, here's how the data should look. Here's how the data should be leveraged and used. Here's who should have access to it. And be able to do that. Also, we talked about it multiple times, data literacy. They actually brought this up in the article as well. Having training programs so that individuals can, in the short term and long term, come up to speed on data, right? And get more literate there. And the last one was really having that what they called was an ombudsman. So an individual who could take a step back and investigate data integrity, data analytics from a very neutral perspective. They're not with business, they're not with IT. We want to take a look at all of that. And I think those were 4 good areas that I believe the article pulled out that companies should really look at to align those goals and having that in place.
And Carly has shared the article, so thank you so much, Carly. So just to recap, you mentioned an outspoken proponent, center of excellence, data literacy, training or of some sort, and then an ombudsman, so some neutral party between IT and business that can actually investigate this data. I wanted to kind of drill down a little bit on that center of excellence because you mentioned that that's the area you are very passionate about building. So maybe if you can share with the audience your top 3 tips on how do you build a center of excellence? What are your tips?
Yeah, that's great. So a center of excellence, in my opinion, should start with executive leadership, with executive tie-in, right? Someone at a very high level, preferably C-suite, needs to be in those meetings, needs to put their foot down and say, this is what we need to do, right? This is what direction this company is going to go so that we can make better decisions based off of data. I think one of the other things that needs to happen, absolutely, is they need to put together a governance team. Both IT and business need to come together, put a couple people, in a room and say, okay, all right, here is our data. Here is how we calculate this. Here is who we're going to give access to all of this. These are the tools. These are the platforms that are going to have access to it so people can do their own self-service work, right? There should be somewhat of and even be a rotating governing body because things are constantly going to change that can look at the ecosystem holistically and say, here's how we want this to run. I think that's pretty critical as well.
Yeah.
The center of excellence should also be, first and foremost, though, a place for people to go to understand the ecosystem, understand the data, right? If you're a business person and you have a question, they should be one of the first people you go to that, hey, I want to access this data, or I want to be able to do this analysis. We're seeing these trends, help me understand how I can investigate this more, right? So they should be an information They should be an information point for everyone in the organization that needs to be able to answer those questions. So that's just a couple of them that I think in my time I've tried to foster those three things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So in a big organization, sometimes you'll have multiple departments and they might end up building their own centers of excellence. And I know the keyword here is center, usually means one, right? One center. But what do you do when you have, let's say, multiple centers of excellence and they don't necessarily talk to each other? How do you?
Yeah, that's like, so so I worked with a company not too long ago. Let's call them Mastercard. And so they did this exact thing. They have a fantastic center of excellence put together, and it's very much they have different departments, they have different areas that for finance, for processing, whatever it might be. Let's understand how we want to use our data and who has access to that. But that one leader, that one person on each one of those teams comes together once a quarter and they talk about that whole holistic ecosystem, right, of the environment that they want to work within, right? And there's new data sources coming online all the time. So in order to keep a good understanding of, hey, we're doing this today, but we would really like to have a certain kind of data to augment it and to provide more insight. Oh, that's actually coming on board over here in this other group. It's important to have that connection, right? It's important to have that collaboration. So whether you have, all of your different groups or whether you have one single one, I think it's important to come together at any time. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a question here from Lights on Data, and the question is, Joe, what are the next steps for pyramid analytics? So I'm not sure if you have any insight into kind of where pyramid analytics striving to go, or maybe we can also talk about the customers that you focus on serving.
I mean, so that's a great question. So we're in a fantastic point in the pyramid analytics lifeline right now because we are about to release our next big release, if you will, version, Pyramid 2020.20. And so what we're focusing on here within Pyramid is, one, keeping true to our ease of use, which Gartner has, and others have ranked as #1, right? If you look at those reports, we want to keep things usable for our end users, but we also want to start injecting a lot more machine learning and a lot more artificial intelligence in an automated way, so that people can take advantage of that without having to hire coders, without having to hire R and Python, data scientists. I think it's important to expose that to a level below those data scientists so that people can be more efficient with it. We're doing a number of things to empower the larger audience within organizations. Again, we don't want to be a point tool for just analysts. We do a great job and we will make your lives super easy, right, as an analyst by applying a lot of different functionality to your life. But we also really want to focus in on pushing information out to the masses, pushing information out to the frontline workers who are making, the $5 decisions every single day, or every, hour, instead of just the individual to high level that are making maybe $1 million decision a year. So depending on the size of the organization, we really want to highlight that, and we really want to be able to surface up everyone within the organization.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things. Again, it's coming on here soon. They're prepping us, and it's all really exciting stuff, but there'll be a lot more to talk about here soon.
Okay. Looking forward to the new release. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Before I take the next question, just a quick reminder, we're about to announce the final winner of the dedicated storytelling course. So just hashtag data if you want to throw your name into the virtual hat. There is no hat, but anyways, just put hashtag data. And then we'll go ahead and take this question here. On the data-centric culture, do you have any recommendations to boost team culture while different specialists are part of the same team?
So to boost team culture, again, I think one of the things we've talked about is make it fun, make it competitive, right? So if you are really trying to make that data-centric culture, let's bring everyone together. Let's throw a challenge out there, right, to the whole group, and really bring them all along, and have everyone working on the same project on the side if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great way to engage everyone and to keep everyone learning and growing within their data literacy path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I loved your example with those data competitions. And then there was another example, I believe it was from Walmart, that had data cafes. And this is pre-COVID, right? Where people can actually meet in person. But they had like a cafe where you had these data professionals, let's call them, that would just sit with their laptops, and people can actually come up to them and say, hey, I have this problem, or I want to see this data, or I'm stuck with this this product that I'm working with. And they were able to just sit there, kind of like an IT department, but not for your IT issues, it was for your data questions. And I thought that was really effective, and they actually said it was effective. It just sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Engagement. Again, I think, a couple of weeks ago, you worked with one of my coworkers, or one of my individual, Robin, and you talked about the storytellers, right? I think if you can find those good storytellers, engage those storytellers, find the ones that are passionate about that data, and then expose them to as many people as possible. That is how you're going to drive that adoption. That's how you're going to drive people's excitement.
How do you find the data storyteller in your organization?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I kind of look for, when I'm meeting new organizations, it kind of jumps out pretty quickly. And I'm going to say this in a nice way. They're the outspoken ones. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are very, they get fired up. They get passionate, right? They know the data. They know the process. They know the company and what the company's ultimate goals are, right? Everyone wants to make more money. Everyone wants to be successful in their job. And so find those people, right? Rile them up a little bit, and then have them tell you what's going on, right? They will tell you a data story. They will tell you some type of story if you get them to that point. And so I just look for those people in particular.
Yeah, this sort of brings me back to my risk management career. This was pre-data, and I worked at a bank where we were trying to roll out risk management professionals, right? Instead of trying to get people to be data storytellers, we were building risk champions. And one thing that was effective, which I think relates really well to the data space, is designating a specific data storytelling champion, or just data champion in every department, and giving them that official title of you are the data champion. It's going to make them think differently. And then again, you can bring them all in the same room together and say, okay, you guys are the chosen ones, right? You are the data champions. And it gives you this sense of responsibility where now you're they're trying to make other people data champions and data storytellers. And I think that's a great way, especially when things go back to normal, when we're in person. It's a great way to get the teams together and also collaborate across the different departments.
Absolutely, I love that. I really like that approach.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do our giveaway before we wrap up. So I'll share my screen, and let's go ahead and draw this one last time for the dedicated storytelling course. Woo-hoo. All right, winner number 2 here is Paul. Congratulations, Paul. We will follow up after the session with access to the dedicated storytelling course. I'm going to remove that. All right, Joe, this has been super fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. I always learn so much from these shows. For people who want to continue the conversation and have more questions for you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at Pyramid, and you can find me on LinkedIn anytime if you'd like. Some of the areas that I use to research this topic quite often, and I've used over the years, there's a number of articles. One, building company culture. I think, again, Carly, thank you so much. I know you're about to copy these in for me here. There's a Forbes article recently that I thought did a very good job. We have our CEO actually put together a very nice strategy and culture synopsis. Mm-hmm. And I think that one also does a very good job. You can take a look at that on how to cultivate a data inclusive culture. And then there's another one, Rob Cowell. He was on your show a couple of weeks ago. He put together an article about aligning your analytics strategy and company culture.
Mm-hmm.
So he's also well versed in this topic, and he put something together. So I think those articles would be really good. I'd also say that from a reports perspective, I think the latest Bark and Dresner reports do a good job of outlining what companies should be looking for when rolling out a complete data strategy, and how it can affect the different units within your culture, the different levels within your culture, the different types of users, things like that. So outside of just visualizations, we want to be able to consider how we're maximizing our reach with data to everyone, including those non-technicals that I keep talking about. So yeah, there's a Bark survey, there's a Dresner Wisdom of the Crowds. Both do a great job of kind of outlining the platform's role in addressing that data strategy and cultural change need. So just a couple items, yeah, that might be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I see Carly starting to share in some of those sources. So definitely go ahead and check out those articles that Joe just mentioned. And Joe, again, thank you so much for the conversation. I think the few things that you really stressed today are make sure that you are not ignoring that large population of non-technicals, and that you're really not just focusing on the data professionals. They're probably not underserved at this point. They have all the tools they need and access to that data. It's really about getting that data to the rest of the population, and then working within that culture that you have to improve the culture, become more data-driven, making data-driven transformation a reality. It's not a flipping the switch. It takes time. You've got to work with the culture that you have and actually have your executives involved, and teamwork makes the dream work. Yes, I'm sure there's a lot that I missed, but again, thank you, Joe, so much for this session. And thank you for everybody who's joined us here today.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Kate. I appreciate being here.
Awesome.